Federal Road Safety Corps to impose sanctions on substandard driving schools gives 2 months grace period.
On Good Morning Nigeria today, we focus on matters arising at the National Assembly, and we shall also revisit the Vice President's investment roadshow to the U.S.
On the 24th of July this year, the National Assembly embarked on its annual recess, expected to end on the 25th of September.
But prior to proceeding on the annual vacation, a letter from President Muhammadu Buhari dated the 11th of July had requested the approval of the lawmakers for funds to enable the Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) commence preparations for the 2019 general elections.
Now, the letter read by the Senate President Bukola Saraki on the 17th of July stated that the funds should be provided through supplementary or vehement.
So far, appeals have come from various quarters, including the presidency, to the National Assembly to reconvene and then consider the matters pending before it. Well, that's one issue. Yesterday, the National Assembly leadership sought to hold a meeting to consider whether or not to reconvene or how soon to reconvene. But unfortunately, the National Assembly was barricaded by men or operatives from the Department of State Services. And then there were a number of other consequences that followed, including the termination of the appointment of the then DG of the DSS, Lawa Dara. That's our first topic for conversation this morning.
Today, we shall also revisit Vice President Yemi Osinbajo's roadshow to the United States in the third week of July this year.
And a team of some leading names in Nigeria's private sector, and they did some investment managers in government circles, were at Silicon Valley in San Francisco and Hollywood in Los Angeles in the U.S.
They were led by the Vice President Yemi Osinbajo on a mission to attract foreign investment into the country's growing technology, entertainment and innovation space, while finding new frontiers to help boost knowledge in the sectors.
All right, now the team had interactions with the CEOs of big names in the global tech and creativity industries to gather support in order to boost Nigeria's foreign exchange earnings once investments keep pouring into the country.
Areas such as localizing content, its distribution, accessibility, and cost reduction were prominent in conversations between the team and its hosts.
That's right. Now, the investment roadshow was expected, as it were, to create the necessary global exposure for Nigerians in tech, entertainment, and innovation industry, while also carving a niche for them to thrive.
On the Vice President's team were members of the recently inaugurated National Industrial Policy and Competitive Advisory Council.
All right, now it is said that the roadshow was generally targeted at further improving on Nigeria's ease of doing business.
So what are the feedbacks from the private sector? What gains did Nigeria's private sector get after or from the roadshow? This is our second issue on Good Morning Nigeria today, and we'll have guests in the studio to speak to it. We thank you for joining us. We're reaching you on the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA, Africa's largest television network. I am Joy Osiago.
And I'm Kingsley Osadolo. I join my colleague Joy in also welcoming you to the program. I just want to indicate that I'll return to the subject of the Vice President's investment roadshow to the U.S. It's the second time we'll be taking a look at it. We had had in the studios government officials who accompanied the Vice President on that particular trip. But today we are looking at the private sector participants who were also on the roadshow, because ultimately they will be the ones, to put in their money, and then also encourage the various other participants, and indeed those who will take a bearing from the their considerations. That's what we're looking at in our conversation segment, plus, as we indicated, occurrences at the National Assembly. And in the course of it as well, we shall have our regular companion segments, including newspaper review, business, sports, and others. In the meantime, let's join our other colleague, Chimaobi Walter Onaji, for the highlights of the morning news. Hi, Chimaobi.
Hello, Joy and Kingsley. Good morning and welcome to the news. The Acting Director General of the Department of State Services, DSS, Matthew Sheyefa, spent close to an hour with Acting President Yemi Osinbajo, a few hours after he was directed to act in place of the sacked DG Lawal Musudaura. The Acting Director General, who hails from Bayelsa State, was before his appointment the most senior director in the service, who was also the Director, Institute of Security Studies, Abuja. With about 34 years of experience, Sheyefa has served in different capacities, including State Director Osun, Akwa Ibom, and Lagos State. Earlier, the Acting President Yemi Osinbajo had directed the termination of the appointment of the Director General State Security Service Lawal Musudaura with immediate effect. A statement by Senior Special Assistant to the President on Media and Publicity Laulu Akonde in the office of the Acting President said Mr. Daura has been directed to hand over the most senior officer of the State Security Service until further notice. An event at the National Assembly complex that led to the sack of the Director General DSS Lawal Daura began in the early hours of Tuesday morning. National Assembly correspondent Lami Ali reports on some of the lawmakers' reaction that led on what transpired there.
We came as usual. We're on recess, but we normally come to the office to do our official duties, committee works, and finish our reports since we are still around. And when we were coming in, we were debarred from having access into the National Assembly.
There are committee works going on, and I was totally taken aback that there's a whole barricade, and now it has created room for all sorts of rumors that some senators intended to come and impeach the Senate President.
And following what the authority described as unauthorized seizure of the National Assembly complex, the Inspector General of Police has denied any involvement of the police in the incident. In a brief chat with the press at the State House, the IGP says investigation is on what led to the siege and those involved.
Is police involved?
No, we're not. The fact to me is a surprise to me. You know.
But they said they got orders from above, so why are you surprised to you?
Who said?
And that's what we heard.
I don't know who said it, but like I said, police are not involved.
And in the meantime, the All Progressives Congress APC has reacted to what it described as mischievous attempts in some partisan quarters to link Tuesday's development at the National Assembly to party's national chairman, Comrade Adams Oshomole. A statement by the acting National Publicity Secretary of the party, Yekini Anebana, noted that there is absolutely no basis for the false allegation and attempt to blame the APC chairman for the development, saying it is strictly a legislative matter. The party, he says, is monitoring the developments just like every concerned Nigerian is at the moment. And meanwhile, Senator Godswill Akpabio has formally resigned as Senate Minority Leader, coming ahead of his scheduled defection from the PDP to the All Progressives Congress APC. The senator, who spoke to newsmen on arrival at Ibom International Airport Tuesday, called on Nigerians to support President Buhari's commitment to a better Nigeria.
My decision today is that my people cannot and will never sit back while Nigeria is suffering. We must support the government of the day so that Nigeria can survive before election.
And in other news, wife of the President Aisha Muhammadu Buhari has reaffirmed her commitment to support Nigerian women aspiring for elective positions under the All Progressives Congress to ensuring the attainment of the 35% affirmative action for sustainable national growth and development. Mrs. Buhari stated this when she received the newly elected national women leaders of the APC.
I'm happy to note that APC women have a unique tradition of uniting through dialogue. I call on you all to sustain the tempo as elections are around the corner. There is no time. On this note, we should continue to support the good work of this government.
And in another development, substandard driving schools in the country that fail to comply with full standard requirements for operation before 30th of September 2018 will be shut down and their licenses withdrawn by the Federal Road Safety Corps. Commercial Boboe Oyeyemi gave this ultimatum at the opening session of a national workshop for driving school operators in North Central Zone in Abuja.
Admit that the driving schools have not lived up to the required expectations, and this is a very sad development.
If you go to some driving schools, the vehicles they are using for the driving school is not roadworthy.
And that's the news this morning. Good Morning Nigeria continues with Joy and Kingsley after the break. Do stay with us.
It's still Good Morning Nigeria, and we thank you for staying with us. The Central Bank of Nigeria injects $210 million into the interbank foreign exchange market to ensure availability of forex. Let's join Kunle Adeyeye for more on business news.
At Tuesday's trading, the Central Bank of Nigeria offered $100 million to authorized dealers in the wholesale segment of the market, while small and medium enterprises segment received $55 million. Customers requiring foreign exchange for invisibles such as tuition fees, medical payments, among others, got $55 million. Meanwhile, the Chartered Institute of Bankers of Nigeria says it has been appointed by the Central Bank of Nigeria as the Secretariat for the Alternative Dispute Resolutions Platform for mortgage banks. In a statement, the Central Bank of Nigeria established a subcommittee on ethics and professionalism for mortgage bankers in a renewed effort to build public confidence as well as engender stability in the mortgage banking subsector of the Nigerian banking industry. The subcommittee would ensure the settlement of disputes between mortgage banks and their customers on one hand and among the other banks on the other hand. The National Bureau of Statistics on the importation of petroleum products for the second quarter of 2018 states that 4.79 billion liters of premium motor spirit PMS, 1.1 billion liters of automotive gas oil AGO, 43.79 million liters of household kerosene HHK, and 200.39 million liters of aviation turbine kerosene ATK were imported into the country. In the month of April, 1.7 billion liters of PMS was imported into the country, while the highest volume of automotive gas oil AGO and household kerosene were imported in June 2018. Let's see how tradings on the floor of the Nigerian Stock Exchange went. With business news, I'm Kunle Adeyeye.
Thank you very much, Kunle, for the business package. Next for us now, we'll take a look at the front pages of today's newspapers in our review session.
Now, let's start with the lead stories across various papers today, and we start with The Punch. This one comes with a kicker. National Assembly invasion. Oshibajo sacks DSS DG. Dora replaces him with Shefa, and it comes with a couple of riders. Ex-DSS boss whisked away by security operatives. Sage a coup against democracy. That is attributed to Saraki Dogara. PDP chair Secondos ask UK to expel Buhari. You can get details of that story on pages 3 and 4. And moving on quickly to the Guardian newspaper, The lead story there says DSS operatives lay siege to National Assembly. Presidency sacks DG Lawal Daura over unlawful invasion.
All right, Joy. Obviously, I mean, any paper that doesn't have that story on this front page, or is as its lead story, would have missed out. If it's a daily newspaper, by the way, because the events occurred yesterday. And while we were on Good Morning Nigeria yesterday, we actually had a report that the National Assembly had been cordoned off by security operatives, but we're not quite sure what was going on until much later. So as I said, all the papers that we have this morning have the story as your lead. The Nigerian pilot says siege at National Assembly. Siege at National Assembly, and one of the riders there, siege at the National Assembly, one of the riders says blockade not authorized. That's according to Oshibajo, who is acting president, and the sack of the Director General of DSS, Lawal Daura, is also there, and the appointment of an acting DG for the DSS, Matthew Seifa, is also there. Democracy on trial, that's what you have, plus photographs from the scenes at the National Assembly yesterday. Nigerian Tribune also has it as its lead story. National Assembly siege, that's the kicker, why Oshibajo fired Daura as DSS DG, and all the other things that we've talked about in terms of the riders are also there. But let's take some other riders. Now it says, we are for independence of democratic institutions. That's according to the UK. Afenifere, PDP, APC, NBA, Atiku, Fayose, Wike, Otom, Falaye, and others condemn invasion. And how Rivers female representative dead DSS. Now you can see the photograph there. The lady who is sitting there is a member of the House of Representatives, and her name is Honorable Boma Goodhead. She said we're confronting the masked security operative who prevented her from gaining access into the National Assembly complex on Tuesday. One other report is saying that indeed she's the sister of Asari Dokubo. Let's go very quickly now to Daily Sun and also take a look at the headlines. Daily Sun, of course, frames it in RLB, and then has a number of photographs there. Aftermath of DSS invasion and barricade of National Assembly. Daura, end of spy master. With riders, DSS, DG kisses dust as Oshibajo bears thanks following Buhari's nod. And Nigerians must rise to defend democracy. Wike, and how Asari Dokubo's sister, Boma Goodhead, confronted security operatives. Again, that's the photograph there of the Representative Goodhead and the masked DSS operative, plus the other photographs that you find there. So, Joy, that's the major story, obviously. And
yes, we have similar photographs on the Punch newspapers. If you look at the front page, below there, it says the member House of Representatives, Honorable Boma Goodhead, in face-off with an official of the Department of State Services at the entrance of the National Assembly in Abuja, and a couple of other pictures of events at the National Assembly yesterday. So most of the lead stories are similar.
Yeah, well, what is perhaps important at this stage is maybe just to rewind the tape back and then try to get the sequence of events. Today is Wednesday. All through last week on the weekend, and indeed up until Monday, there were calls for the reconvening of the National Assembly at plenary, because they had, of course, as we indicated in our banter, proceeded on a 2-month holiday. And they said, look, there are burning issues, you have to reconvene. The INEC budget is outstanding. Some of the critical appointments are also outstanding. So on Monday, the chairman of the National Assembly, that's the Senate president, indicated that, okay, there will be a meeting of principal officers yesterday, Tuesday, at 12 noon. At the National Assembly. Of course, the meeting couldn't have taken place anywhere else. So people are asking now, if there was going to be a meeting of principal officers at the National Assembly complex at 12 noon, what then was the rationale in barricading the National Assembly? Why was, everybody denied a right of entry and exit, as it were, from the National Assembly complex? And the fact that the National Assembly is on recess from plenary doesn't mean that there are no workers in the National Assembly.
That's right.
And that the lawmakers themselves don't go to their offices. They do. They have committee work and so on and so forth. So what was the rationale in barricading the National Assembly complex? That's one question that hasn't been explained.
And we're hoping that when we get our guests into the studio today, perhaps they'll do a critical analysis of it and we'll see what will come out of that. We had a guest on our program at 7:30 yesterday, and he did touch on these issues, and he felt that probably the DSS had other reasons why they were there. But again, if you look at it critically, that shouldn't stop the meeting of the leadership of the legislature meeting on crucial issues affecting the nation.
In fact, the most significant item on that on the agenda for the meeting of the leadership was to discuss when and how and if to reconvene the National Assembly in plenary. And of course, the meeting was called off. Later today, we understand that the leadership, that's the Senate President and the House Speaker, will be addressing, a press conference. But there are a number of matters arising, and I think that this is two of them, two of those crucial issues. We keep hearing from time to time orders from above. Orders from above. What is the meaning of orders from above? And who is that above that is giving the orders? We have seen acting president says, listen, this was not authorized. So who did it? And this occurred in the three arm zones of the country. Three arms. That's to say the legislature, the judiciary, the executive, and the judiciary. All before the international community, all before Nigerian nationals. And sometimes the way security operatives also present themselves, for some of these operations, will make it look like we are in a war situation. Look at the photographs again on the front pages of the papers that we have this morning. And you can see they are in black cover, they are in masks and so on and so forth. We recall in 2014, during the Ekiti governorship election, it was argued that, listen, the presence of persons like this scared some voters. And
of course.
It wasn't a war situation. So if I'm saying, perhaps this calls for a review of the operational manual of some of the security agencies. There's no need for this.
And that's why some people felt yesterday when the acting president took that decision about the sack of the DGDSS, that it was like a warning, a call to action and a warning signal to security operatives that there is a need to think before taking certain decisions.
I agree with you. Let's take a look at other headlines. As we said, if the country is not at war, unfortunately, some persons will tell you that the way those guys, the way they appear, they look like hitmen.
But of course, take a look.
Yeah. All right, let's take a look at other headlines that are just on the front pages of the papers. From the Daily Sun newspaper, an earpiece beside the nameplate. This has been in the offing as well for a while now. As Akpabio resigns as Senate Minority Leader, that would be a prelude to his exiting the PDP, obviously, and crossing over to the party of his choice. But to be inevitably the APC from the various meetings that he has held lately. Photo opportunities with President Buhari in London. Another photo opportunity with Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, also here in Nigeria. And by the way, that's just one of the riders. You read on the National Assembly siege. Yes. They were saying that, the UK should expel President Buhari from London. That's from the Punch newspaper.
Yes,
why should that be so?
Exactly.
The executive branch under which the DSS operates has already taken an action, with regard to this, which shows clearly that the instructions as to what happened yesterday at the National Assembly, they did come from the presidency.
That's right.
That's right.
All right, let's go to the Punch newspapers and take a look at some of the other stories trending. Above the nameplate is this story which says, strike imminent as ASU rejects Baba Lakin-led renegotiation team. Details of that story can be found on page 42. And beside it is another one which says, CBN may increase interest rate soon. It's on page 23. And a little bit beside the nameplate, unruly incompetent policemen to be dismissed soon, PSC chairman. Details on page 12. And let's go to the foot of the Punch newspaper. Catholic bishops warn members against endorsing politicians. Katsina road crash claims 7 police intensify highway patrol. 2019, ex-NEMA DG CD joins Kaduna governorship race.
All right, let's return to the Nigerian pilot. Nigerian pilot, immediately below the nameplate of the Nigerian pilot, two stories there. EFCC freezes Benue government bank accounts. That's on page 12. And then you have a story there also, national government appointees in trouble for shunning Al-Makura's book launch. That's on page 10. And then below the photograph on the front page, you have other headlines. NCC aiding MTN to flout Nigerian laws. That's attributed to the Labour Congress. Lassa fever claims life in Enugu. And Plateau killings. Governor Lalong vows to resist land grabbing. And PDP salutes Oshibajo for sacking DG of DSS. The story on the EFCC freezing the Benue government bank account is only in the Nigerian pilot that we have it. Yeah. And it says that that occurred yesterday, but we're not sure what the details are and why the EFCC has taken that step. But of course, that would be a drastic measure to take for the accounts of the state government to be frozen by the EFCC.
Let's hope we'll get details subsequently. Let's go quickly to our editorial for the day, and it is taken from the Daily Independent. It is titled, FG's Order to Electricity Companies. Recently, the federal government ordered electricity companies to provide uninterrupted services to Nigerians or quit for serious operators. Now, following rising demands across Nigeria that the privatization exercise be reviewed, the president, in line with his administration's anti-corruption crusade, should no longer foot drag on this crucial matter. The government should quickly end the problems arising from unavailability of prepaid meters, illegal disconnections, estimated billings, deteriorating services, and corruption in the power sector. Now, Kingsley, the issue of challenges in the power sector has been one that has been going on for a very long time, despite all attempts to resolve this issue. And I guess these are some of the teething problems, the major things coming out of basic challenges that consumers face.
No doubt about that. I mean, probably the simplest way to put it is that Nigeria's electricity market is in crisis. And, you know, various measures have been outlined in the past, some of them being implemented, and still, you know.
But it seems like it's a vicious circle.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's a topic that we have also had guests discuss on Good Morning Nigeria. The generating companies are expressing frustration because they are being owed over ₦1 trillion. The discos themselves, you know, are having problems, but consumers, you know, who rely on the distribution companies, you know, are not getting any succor, as it were, from the discos. And lately, the discos were saying, look, they were willing already to dispose of their investments, even at a discount. And I'm sure that at some point, some drastic measures will need to be taken with regard to, as we said, the crisis in Nigeria's electricity market. So that's a reinforcement of the editorial by the Daily Independent. Okay. All right, so that's the much that we can take in our review segment. We'll take a short break now. When we return, we'll be dealing with matters arising from the National Assembly, plus looking again at the investment roadshow to the U.S. by the Vice President, now acting President. All right, you're welcome back. If you just joined us, it's Good Morning Nigeria. We are reaching you live on the network service of Africa's largest television network, the Nigerian Television Authority. As, of course, we have reviewed in the papers, plus the stories that are well abroad. There were occurrences yesterday at the National Assembly, and before then, there had also been incidents and the pressure to get the National Assembly to reconvene to consider some very urgent matters. We have two guests with us in the studios now to discuss these issues. First, we'd like to welcome Dr. Mohammed Kari. He's a senior lecturer at the University of Abuja here, and also a political analyst. That's to say, I'm sorry, Abubakar Kari. I keep calling him Mohammed. I don't know why.
Because there is a Mohammed Kari.
Yes, that's the
MD of Nakon Insurance.
Yeah, that's insurance. That's what got in. The insurance stuff that got in. Abubakar Kari, pleasure to have you again on Good Morning Nigeria. All right, and then also here with us, a legal practitioner and public affairs analyst, Mike Utsaha. Mike Utsaha, pleasure to have you both on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you. Good morning, Nigerians.
Okay. All right, Joy, let's begin this conversation, gentlemen. I would like to have your take on what's playing out, what has been playing out in the National Assembly, all the issues, and then what would appear to have been the bust-up yesterday.
Well, probably beginning with the bust-up, I think it was quite unfortunate. As a Nigerian, I felt very bad that an incident like that happened, where hooded members of the State Security Service invaded, or at least occupied the gates of the National Assembly, and for several hours prevented people from entering. Granted that the Assembly is in recess, but recess does not mean that workers cannot go to work, members cannot go to their offices, even some committee meetings held during recess. Strangely and inexplicably, these people came, prevented people, and the nation was scandalized. In the end, I believe that the Vice President, the acting President, took an appropriate step. But generally, however, the National Assembly has been in the news for all the wrong reasons. I'm one of those who believe that the abrupt recess called was unwarranted, because there are fundamental issues that should have been addressed. The way they went to recess and abandoned urgent and fundamental issues of affecting the nation, it's not good. However, if they should reconvene, they have their own laws, the external rules, the Nigerian constitutions, and all the other regulations provide for how National Assembly can reconvene. And as members of the legislature, a separate arm of government, I think they should be allowed to exercise and operate their own rules without undue interference from whatever quarters. So the incidents at the National Assembly, honestly, are very, very distressing.
Thank you, Dr. Kari. Let's bring in quickly Mike Otaha into the conversation. What do you make of events at the National Assembly yesterday?
Well, let me say I endorse Dr. Kari's position, except perhaps his viewpoint on how the recess of the two chambers of the National Assembly got into place. But having endorsed what he has to say, the next thing is to see whether there are lessons for us to learn from yesterday's incident. And it's for various stakeholders. The National Assembly as an institution, the executive branch of government, we Nigerians, the security architecture in Nigeria, and various stakeholders. I think for the National Assembly, for instance, this is a time for it to reassert itself as one of the principal institutions of our democratization process. And I say this because, like Dr. Kari pointed out, coming on the heels of the recent invasion of the Senate, where the mace, the symbol of authority of the Senate, was snatched, nobody has been prosecuted so far, as to my knowledge. No reasonable response has happened to that situation. And then we see what happened yesterday. So the Senate and the National Assembly as an entity must rise up to the occasion and try to reassert itself as, you know, one of the principal institutions of our democratization process. For the executive branch of government, I think we must commend the acting president for taking this step. And those who have gone on social media and other traditional media that we have around, you can see the responses or the reaction of Nigerians to what has happened. So it clearly shows that if you are charged with a responsibility and you deal with it, you discharge this responsibility outside of the confines of the law, there are consequences. And I think we should have seen this a lot earlier, and we probably wouldn't have the kind of situation that we have now, particularly with our security situation in Nigeria, you know. Because I say this precisely because this is not the first time we're experiencing this. In October of 2016, judges, including judges of the highest court of the land, had their houses and their privacies invaded by this same institution. Nothing happened. There are a series of other cases, disobedience to court order, all kinds of other infractions that have been committed by this same individual. So I thought, I guess his cup just got full yesterday, and this acting president had to wield the sledgehammer. And very appropriately, in my view, you know, this is what we expect in a democracy. And particularly interesting is the wording of the statement that was issued from the office of the acting president. This is completely incompatible with the rule of law, constitutional order, and all notions of law and order. These were the words used in the statement issued from the office of the vice president. And it shows you how the man feels about this. And we should have seen this a lot earlier. And going forward, I think we should see more and more of this. Security agencies should know that, look, you have a responsibility to discharge. You have the freedom to discharge it, but it has to be within the limitations that are placed by the law. I think these are some of the lessons that we must learn from yesterday's unfortunate incident.
All right, Dr. Kari, let's look at it now. There were circumstances that obviously triggered what happened yesterday. You had already spoken a bit about the fact that you felt uncomfortable with the long recess, the premature recess that the National Assembly took. But in the course of the recess that they've had for some weeks now, there have been all kinds of permutations and so on and so forth. And then there are urgent matters to be dealt with. In your opinion, how should the National Assembly respond to all of this now? You know, knowing that, listen, Nigerians indeed want them to work.
Yeah, the National Assembly is a very important institution of the state. The entire appropriation spending of the state, for instance, depends on the National Assembly's operation. There have been speculations about shutting up the government the way the recess was proclaimed. So I think the leadership of the National Assembly ought to have been more careful, ought to have taken the overall interest of the Nigerian state and the Nigerian people into consideration in whatever they do. It was very clear that the way the recess was pronounced was abrupt. And I think it was to save the neck, so to say, of the principal officers of the National Assembly. It came immediately on the heels of a gale of defection on the floor of the Senate and the House of Representatives. It was a very chaotic situation. Anything was possible, anything is still possible, and they felt in their own wisdom that the best thing to do was to buy for time. Was to buy time. And so they now sent their members home, even in the light of the existence of so many issues. The budget of INEC, for instance, the supplementary budget environment, in the Senate, there has also been the issue of confirming some important nominees. And all this, the Nigerian nation and the Nigerian people stand to lose a lot. But I think the problem, the real problem, has to do with what I would call a climate of impunity, which is actually prevalent, very pervasive, very, very prevalent, and which is everywhere, including at the National Assembly. The executive, the security agencies, the legislatures simply have been doing what they like. It will interest you to know that the same members of the National Assembly who are supposed to be protectors of our national ethos and our national constitution has been obeying court orders in the breach. There have been pronouncements by the court against the Senate and against the House of Representatives, which were ignored. Of course, that has almost become a norm with the executive and the police, the DSS, and so on and so forth. So very soon, if care is not taken, ordinary Nigerians will also begin to ignore court orders. So it is this impunity that actually instigated everything that has happened.
All right, let's bring back Mike Utaha into the conversation. You know, considering the number of burning issues we have, would it be appropriate for, or can we say that it was appropriate for the legislators to go on recess? And even at that, with these challenges, do they really have the interest of the electorate at heart?
Well, I mean, if you look at the antecedents of the National Assembly, not just the 8th National Assembly, but since for the last 18 or 19 years, if you like, we have not seen the kind of National Assembly that Nigerians will really desire in terms of rising up to the occasion and, like Dr. Kari said, an institution that operates within the confines of the law, devoid of any acts of impunity. But we must return to this issue of yesterday's invasion. There is absolutely no justification. We have said that, and in my view, we shouldn't try to bring it side by side with acts of, for want of a better word, irresponsibility on the part of the National Assembly. We are on the path of democratization, and we must, at every point in time, try to learn lessons and try to see how we can move forward. What happened yesterday, again, is coming on the heels of what happened in Benue 2 weeks ago, you know, that we had another institution of the federal government of Nigeria barricade the gates of another legislative institution. I think this is the time for legislative assemblies to come together and say that, look, enough of this nonsense. We must get to the root of this matter. We should get to the root of this matter. We have these issues recurring because once they come up, we sweep them under the carpet, and 2 weeks down the road, nobody's talking about them again. What happened in Benue? We should know. The high command of the police has disassociated itself from what happened. So who takes responsibility for what happened there? We have the head of the DSS removed, but we should go beyond that. And because, I mean, there are infractions of the law here, you know. So we must go beyond just sacking people from office, but we must take decisive action that really serves as a deterrent to those who are want towards, you know, perpetrating acts that are completely incompatible with our democratic tenets.
Mike, stay with you. You've talked about learning lessons from the incidents of yesterday.
Yes.
There have been all kinds of speculations as to probably, you know, what the remote and the immediate causes were. Yes. Allegations, of course, that, perhaps it was an opportunity if the National Assembly got together for them to remove their leadership, whether the Senate President or the Speaker. You remove them, they will still be members of the National Assembly.
Precisely.
Now, and considering what has happened, what, in your opinion, should be the proper disposition, therefore, of the lawmakers, bearing in mind the urgent matters that they still have to deal with?
I think, again, I continue on this path of learning lessons. Now that it is very clear to all of us Nigerians, and of course to members of the National Assembly, that Nigerians are not happy with what happened yesterday, and they're rather happy with the action of the acting president, I think they should consider reconvening to consider these urgent issues, particularly the issue of the budget that is due to INEC. We'll have elections, you know, in February next year, and if by now we have not concluded the issue of the budget that is due to INEC, then it's a bit problematic. And like Dr. Kari said, there are a series of appointments that will require National Assembly or Senate confirmation. And I think this is the chance that the National Assembly has, not just to redeem itself, but to reassert itself and, you know, place itself in the hearts of Nigerians by coming. There was a meeting that was meant to hold yesterday so that they could reconsider or consider reconvening. And I think that meeting should go on, if you ask my view, in spite of what happened yesterday, and particularly with respect to the way the acting president has responded to it, that meeting should go on, and ultimately the National Assembly should reconvene and consider the urgent issues that are there to be considered in the interest of the generality of Nigerians. That would be my view.
Dr. Kari, your take on this?
Yeah, I think generally the legislators should play less politics and be statesmen. Absolutely. Yes, if they will consider the nations first, all these issues about change in leadership, defection, and so on and so forth, as far as I'm concerned, they are secondary to the imperative of legislating for the nation. That is their primary responsibility. So even if it is for a month or two, let them decide not to be politicians or to be less politicians and consider these very, very important issues. Perhaps after addressing them, after looking at them, they can come back and play whatever politics they want to play.
But is that possible?
Well, it is not impossible anyway. Yes, I know politicians, you cannot remove them from politics, but too much politics will harm the nation. It is actually harming the nation. So I endorse the position of Barrister Mike that the most important thing is for the principal officers to meet, as they wanted to do yesterday, consider opening the National Assembly, agree among themselves that the only agenda is to look at these very, very important issues. These are issues to me that can actually be concluded within weeks. We still have up to the end of September for primaries to take place and so on and so forth. Meanwhile, they can continue to defect from here and there. That one should, yes, it shouldn't preclude a defection, but what we are talking about, there should defection and change in leadership and all these hula baloo and so on shouldn't be the imperative. The most important thing is to look at the nation, to look at the serious issues, consider them, and then they can resume their politics.
Joy, I'm wondering, I don't know who will probably help to Mike, maybe you can speak to this, who will help remind the lawmakers at the National Assembly, particularly the Senate. Of course, it is clear that there's been a frosty relationship between the executive and the legislative branches of government, as we have seen for over the past 3 years. But if you recall, last year there were concerns, for instance, as to the moratorium, if you like, that the Senate placed on consideration of nominees coming from the executive branch, to say that on account of certain disagreements that they have, they will no longer consider nominees. And then two of such established institutions were raised. One had to do with INEC itself. INEC did not have the full complement, and therefore it could not carry on with its operations, which would have affected the conduct of subsequent elections that we have seen in Ekiti, and then we're going to see it on show, and then in 2019. And then there was also the membership of the Monetary Policy Committee, that it had some vacancies that needed to be filled, and that if those vacancies were not filled, the MPC couldn't meet, and therefore the gains that had been achieved with regard to rolling back recession, to which the Assembly, National Assembly itself had been, a major contributor in terms of ideas and so on and so forth, would have been impacted. And they now came back and said, all right, fine, we would isolate nominations for INEC, isolate nominations for the Monetary Policy Committee meeting, consider them, and then we'll proceed, and then, of course, return to the trenches in our fight against the executive branch. Can the National Assembly members recall all of this and say, all right, in the national interest, let's take a look at what is urgent, proceed, and then, as Dr. Kari has said, they can continue with their gypsy defection.
You notice I was nodding my head when he was talking about the conduct. I mean, Dr. Kari was talking about the way our politicians politic all the time without considering issues that are of importance to us as a country. And this is really where the difference comes. Kingsley, in 1994, Africa witnessed one of the most horrendous events since the end of slavery, the sad event in Rwanda. Rwanda is today posting development indicators that can rival even countries in Western Europe. It's less than 30 years. And it is not happening because they were praying constantly or fasting or saying psalms or whatever. It happened because they had a leader who has supporters around him who have decided that, look, we must take Rwanda to the next level. I think this should be a challenge to members of the National Assembly, but not just members of the National Assembly. Everybody, including Dr. Kari, myself, you, Kingsley, Joy, everybody, we have a responsibility to say that enough of this nonsense. We need to move this country to the next level. This is what is expected of us. But starting with our leaders, you know, they are in the hearts of Nigerians now. They're enjoying a lot of sympathy from Nigerians now, and they should rise to the occasion. First, like we said, by reconvening, and then two, like he said, less of the politicking. We must have statesmen rather than politicians. We should do politics. I mean, you can't stop politicians from politicking, but certainly we need for them to reduce the level of politicking to consider important national issues. And it's, for me, really providential that this is happening at a time that Vice President is the acting president.
All right.
Michael. At the same time, just a minute, Joy. It was the same Vice President in acting president capacity that signed Executive Order Number 1 on ease of doing business in Nigeria. You know, it is the same him that is saying to the international community that, look, we will not stand any conduct that is inimical to our hard-fought democracy, you know. So for me, really, it is providential, and we should all see this as an opportunity to come together as Nigerians and say that, look, this is not painting us in good light. This is not presenting us in the international community for who we are. We are a potentially very great nation, and we should rise to the occasion, really. And there can be no better opportunity than now.
All right, Mike, thanks a lot. Let's get some reactions now from our viewers. Quite a number of tweets, but let's see what we'll run through them. Chris Himi on tweets. Now, the siege to the National Assembly by the DS. Of course, by the way, you've been hearing all kinds of prepositions. Yes, siege on, siege at, you know, siege to the National Assembly by the DSS operatives yesterday was bad. It's a dead blow to democracy. Well, of course, the authorities have responded, so it's not a blow. It's not a dead blow, yes.
Let's take this one coming from Dele Jack Solomon Medj. He tweets, we have a big question to ask here. Who ordered the invasion of the National Assembly complex in the first place? The DG DSS can't just have acted solely. He acted on orders, but from who? Nigerians deserve to know. However, the acting president, Oshibajo, acted well accordingly on this matter. Our democracy is key.
Festus Akimboyawa has this tweet. Now, while a number of conspiracy theories have surfaced and the billion-dollar question of who authorized the DSS blockade of National Assembly has not been answered, the blockade itself is not a good way to address the jerky performance of our National Assembly. And the National Assembly has a lot to do to gain our trust.
Let's take this other one from Dele Jack Solomon Medj again. He says, what transpired at the NAS yesterday is not healthy for democracy. Our executive, legislature, and security apparatuses are supposed to exhibit the greatest character of discipline, responsibility, loyalty, and respect for constituted authority. This they must not fail to do.
Mike Ayakwa tweets, now the invasion of the National Assembly by men of DSS was not only despicable but reprehensible. Nigerian democracy was debased by the flagrant, brutal use of force. The sacking of DSS was good, but more investigations on what happened must be carried out by government and culprits prosecuted.
Akins Dada tweets, regardless of allegations or aberrations, the DSS DG shouldn't have been suspended or sacked, not instantly, till the police come up with their findings.
No, Joy, take that again. It says, take that, the Akins Dada, take it again.
Regardless of allegations or aberrations, the DSS DG should have been suspended, not instantly sacked, till the police come up with the findings.
And Abdul Musa tweets, now the drama that took place at the gates of the National Assembly was a script written by some persons in the Assembly and acted by their collaborator to portray the federal government in bad light. God will continue to expose the enemies of this country.
And Olowo Kiri Olajide tweets, it is unfortunate that many of the people in public offices play sycophantic role to please whoever appointed them rather than being patriotic and put Nigeria first.
All right, so those are the reactions we can take from our viewers, and as we indicated, of course, we have two topics to discuss today. We would like to thank our guests who have been with us. Matters arising from the National Assembly will be one that will continue to engage us on Good Morning Nigeria. But at this time, I would like to appreciate Dr. Abubakar Kari, Senior Lecturer at the University of Abuja and a political analyst. Thanks a lot for being on Good Morning Nigeria today.
It's a pleasure.
And also a legal practitioner, public affairs analyst, Mike Utsaha. Thanks a lot for your insights.
My great pleasure.
All right, so it's Good Morning Nigeria still, reaching you on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. We'll take a short break now. When we return, we're looking at an investment roadshow that occurred a few weeks ago.
Now, before we revisit Vice President Yemi Osinbajo's investment roadshow to the United States, let's take this background report by Timothy Yusuf.
The visit by Vice President Yemi Osinbajo to the United States in July created new paths for the country's investment drive, with specific gains recorded in technology, innovation and entertainment sectors. It was also an opportunity to canvass investment to Nigeria, while intimating investors on government's efforts in the area of ease of doing business, as well as open windows of opportunity for the private sector. Leaders in this sector interacted with leading names in Hollywood, Los Angeles, California, and business executives at the Silicon Valley in San Francisco. They exposed Nigeria's pioneering spirit and innovation to the global leaders in the creative sector, as well as challenges encountered in the industry back home, which have created opportunities for growth. Investors at the roadshow sought answers to visa and tax issues and other bottlenecks that could hinder the blossoming of gains recorded after visit. So, what feedback did the team return with, and how will this translate to opportunities in the technology, innovation and entertainment sectors?
Yes, here first.
All right, Timothy Yusuf, thank you very much. As we indicated, this is the second time we are taking on this topic. When we first discussed it shortly after the roadshow, we had government officials who were on that trip, a number of special assistants, as well as the Executive Secretary of the Investment Promotion Commission and the CEO of the Export Promotion Council. At this time now, we're having, of course, some players in the field who will be joining us on the conversation. First, here with us in the Abuja studios, would like to welcome the President of Resource Media Group and Founding Director, Silicon Valley African Film Festival. He's a filmmaker, Chike Nwofia. Chike Nwofia, pleasure to have you with us on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you for having me.
All right, and then from our Lagos Network studios, we have two guests who are with us. First, would like to welcome Iyoluwa Aboyeji. He's CEO and co-founder of Flutterwave Incorporated. His orientation, of course, is towards ICT. Aboyeji, pleasure to have you with us on the program. Alongside the Senior Special Assistant to the President on ICT, that's Olarewanju Oshibona. Oshibona, I recall when we had this conversation, we had you by... we had a via Skype, but unfortunately the connection was so poor on that day, and so that's why we are inviting you again. Gentlemen, in our Lagos Network studios, thanks a lot for being with us on Good Morning Nigeria.
Good morning. Thank you.
It begins at home, or charity should begin abroad. Our headquarters studios, of course, is right here in Abuja. Let's begin with Chike. Give us a sense. The Vice President, of course, who is acting President in the absence of the President on vacation, was in Silicon Valley as well as Hollywood. Tell us, what was your feeling in terms of the outcomes of that roadshow?
Well, I must say that I've been in Silicon Valley. That's where I live. I've been there for 30 years. When the conversation began about the Vice President coming out on a road show, it was a breath of fresh air, because this is something that we have been working on for years and wishing and hoping that Silicon Valley be factored into the whole system of what needs to happen, especially because a lot of other African countries, we're just moving, forging ahead and coming to Silicon Valley. This is the creative capital of the world, the high-tech capital of the world, headquarters for Google, Facebook, Netflix, Adobe, you can go on and on. And so anyways, when we heard when we knew the vice president was now ready to come on out, it was just incredible. And then when he did come with the type of entourage he came with, these were business leaders, government leaders. It showed that Nigeria was now serious about playing on the global stage. And we engaged. We really did engage. Those of us that were there in Silicon Valley were able to connect the dots for those that were visiting, our brothers and sisters that were coming from Nigeria. And Silicon Valley shifted in so many ways. The perceptions, the understanding of the realities on the ground, the understanding of the incredible investment opportunities that Nigeria has to offer. 1 in 7 African is Nigerian, the biggest economy on the continent. And so when he did leave, we now could walk tall, and people could now understand that all the stuff we've been talking about is now being backed by high-powered government standing. And I think we're just beginning to get a sense of the tip of the iceberg in terms of the monumental shift this is going to have.
All right, beyond the strong political will coming in from Nigeria, let's take a look at your own industry, the entertainment industry.
Yes.
We know where Nollywood is now. Nollywood is a big industry, and many countries are interested in what we are doing in Nollywood. Right. Let's get to the meat of the meetings you have with people from the private sector concerning Nollywood. What were some of the issues you looked at?
Well, being in the entertainment industry, one has to understand that this is all about storytelling. And what Nollywood brings to this whole global platform is a very unique style of storytelling, which is inherently African. We are the most creative people on the planet. Storytelling is in our DNA. When grandma sits you down and says, "Once upon a time," that's film, really. That's a film script right there. But it just needs to be structured differently. And so what is now happening is Nollywood has actually placed itself in front and center on the global stage to say, this is Nigeria, this is our storytelling style. Now, what we are beginning to do, particularly with this type of visits, with these types of collaborative efforts, is to say, we own the stories, we have creativity on our side, we have the talent and the skills. Now, there is technology that can help us tell the story and place it on the global stage. There is technology that can also perhaps help us channel the way the story is told. And so these two are beginning to interface. But I don't want Nollywood to ever, whilst we raise standards, while we raise quality, I don't think we need to lose our identity. Because the thing that really does attract people to us is the authentic self that we are. When we become or try to become Hollywood, and we lose ourselves, it's not sustainable. We might create blockbusters for 1 or 2 years, but it's going to fizzle out. But I think what we need to do is to figure out how to connect the authentic self that we are projecting, our authentic cultural practices and ways and normative ways of life, and then merge that with this incredible technology and would really take it over.
I see that is already taking shape. Now, Nigeria is talking about the issue of diversification and to see how we can generate a lot in terms of getting money into the economy, to support the economy from Nollywood. Right. Did you explore that angle?
Oh, most definitely. One of the most important exports of this country right now is the entertainment business. Look at what's happening with music. The film is coming along, fashion. The basic creative industry in this country is exploding. And I think what we also need to do, I'm a very strong advocate of this, is to understand the power of the African and the African diaspora. If you go to a place like Brazil, they are so emotionally and spiritually connected to Nigeria. That's 90 million black people out there waiting to really reconnect with their ancestral homes. If you go to the Caribbean islands, it's the same thing. In the United States, of course. And the whole African diaspora in itself can form this incredible wave that can lead to this bringing in foreign exchange in here, partnering with people that are overseas, and you would see the uptick. And I think we're just beginning really to explore and exploit the potentials that the Nigerian creative sector has.
All right, Chike, thank you very much. Let's go back now to our Lagos Network Center, where you have seen them on the screen. We earlier introduced them. Iyoluwa Boyeji, who is ICT CEO and co-founder of Flutterwave Incorporated, as well as Olarewaju Oshibona, who is SSA to the President on ICT. Let's begin with Aboyeji. Give us a sense of what your takeaways were from the Vice President's roadshow.
Absolutely. First of all, it's a pleasure to be here, and it was definitely an honor to host the Vice President in Silicon Valley. We had started the engagement really as part of the Technology and Creativity Advisory Council, where a group of young people who were practitioners in the industry were coming together to advise and support policies of the government and shape them really as it concerned the technology and creativity spaces so that the industries could grow. And that was essentially one of the first things that we did, was basically this trip, which was, you know, a success by every standard. One of the key pieces really was giving foreign investors, especially large fund managers, billion-dollar funds who were gathered, a window into why Nigeria remains a great investment destination, and also give the government officials an opportunity to hear from these investors about what their biggest concerns were, so that they could also improve the environment.
And then Olarewaju Oshibona, let's have your clear thoughts now, since we are not with us via Skype, on what your takeaways were from that roadshow.
Thank you very much, and good morning to you, and good morning to Nigerians. I think I'm really glad that we have today on this session the private sector, from the creative sector, and also very much from the technology space. And you've heard them. So what we're trying to do as a government is to fully understand, one, we want to collaborate fully with the private sector, understand the pains, the challenges in terms of doing business, in terms of incentives to make things happen, in terms of the necessary infrastructure. And this is really been a proper collaboration, a clear understanding as part of the conversation we're having in the technology and in the Creative Advisory Council. So if you look at the creative sector, Chike has put it so well. But one of the challenges that they have today, I mean, it's a fantastic sector, the Nollywood. However, the challenge is, how do we get the content out and get the value in return? And for country to make value, for the directors, the producers, and the actors to make value. And that is the challenge today. So that's one of the areas we're looking at. That proves a clear business case for why we must put the necessary infrastructure for connectivity in place. Also, as part of the conversations we had while out in LA and also in Silicon Valley, was very much around conversation in distribution in the international market. A lot of distributions that you see out in the international market, I don't see if I doubt if revenues are coming back to the people that put the labor in. We have to tighten those loopholes. We have to, while we use enforcement in terms of piracy, but technology and innovation solves this problem. We have to have partnerships with the likes of Netflix, the YouTube, and ensuring that the content gets value for the people that put hard-earned, intellectual property into it. Again, with regards to what we're doing in terms of the technology space, if you think about the creative sector and technology space, the sheer amount of job opportunities, it's just immense. It's a massive number that we can generate. I was sharing yesterday the fact that today we have the number of developers down the freelance market in Nigeria is roughly about 2,000. However, if you look at just Facebook, one company has 17,000 developers. I'm looking forward to within a short space of time, 200,000 developers in Nigeria that are smart developers that are making good earnings, young people. And, you look at Flutterwave, they have a need. So there's a need for capacity, there's a need for competence, there's a need for skilled workforce. So as we're connecting all these dots, this helps to put in place the necessary investment And the return on investment, part of what we've done as a government is there's a 10 billion fund that's coming out to support the technology and creative sector. Bank of Industry has already put 2 billion in place to support and ensure that we invest value. We own the entire value chain. As we're building our data, we own the data. There's a massive opportunity in analytics and forecasting and opportunities for jobs in data scientists. So the conversations with the likes of Google, the Facebook, we're ensuring that they understand our roadmap at the journey that we are on. We're asking them to collaborate with us. Just recently, we had the Wi-Fi, the free Wi-Fi services collaboration that is being done with Google and the indigenous Nigerian companies, 21st Century, BCN in Abuja. And the opportunity this brings is about access to the internet, which gives access to learning. We need to look at how do we deliver education. Education is critical. We need to educate our people. We need to bring our people up to speed. How do we deliver education in the most cost-effective way? The days of physical structures are gone. They're over. We can't afford it. So it's all about delivering content to the length and breadth of this country. So a lot of conversation was had with investors abroad. Taking the vice president is a strong statement, extremely strong statement to say we are serious, we're focused, we're conscious, and we will make this happen. And we need them to, Nigeria is a showcase. If you look back about 17 years, 18 years when the telco boom happened, some people lost the opportunity. We're saying to them, it's about to happen. It's going to happen. Soon we're working on gathering data on digital ID that's going to open up the space for financial inclusion. We will have the largest digital ID in Africa and the second largest in the world after India. And that's a massive, strong statement. Even the highly developed countries don't have digital ID in that regard. We will build that. We are already on that journey. So but the point is, we as a government, making sure in terms of policy, in terms of the environment, I bet you're well aware of the Nigerian Import Promotion Council incentives around pioneer status for investors that are looking to come into Nigeria and set up in Nigeria as a local company. There are those opportunities while relaxing the policy around data hosting, cloud hosting of data, with the challenge that we had, Google having an AI data center in Ghana. Well, I like to see that as an initial concept in Africa. Nigeria is where you want to be, and we're letting them understand this. But also, we need to be clear. There are local funds that we must attract. Nigerians are here that will invest. We just need to open up the space for Nigerians to invest. And the other area that I want to speak to is policy around regulation. We are working closely in terms of innovative regulation. If you look at the technology innovations going on with the fintech, the agri-tech, the edu-tech, we have to allow young people with smart approach to innovation. The space is changing. We cannot use the old ways of regulation. While we don't want to allow for lapses, but we must allow for innovation to thrive. So that's the effort of this administration. I am confident in saying that I don't think any other government in the history of this country has put as much attention and focus on technology as what this administration is doing.
Still staying with you, Oshibona, there are so many private investors, talking about foreign investors now, who are particularly impressed with the current roadmap. But again, the question is, how prepared is the private sector in Nigeria to deal with them, considering the fact that the private sector will have to drive the process?
No, a very good point. Very, very good point. I mean, what we're trying to ensure is the whole mismatch in terms of regulation. We need to streamline. We need to now start planning long term. We need to ensure that we don't take short-term decisions to meet long-term goals. If you look at what we're doing in terms of the challenge around mobile financial services, mobile money, and the rest of we're looking at that space. Conversation is ongoing to look at our best to ensure that we open up the space. The challenge is there. We have a huge amount of Nigerians that are unbanked. We really need to really look the strategy going forward. That conversation is ongoing. It's chaired by His Excellency the Vice President. We want to give confidence back to the private sector to make them understand that there's a lot of thought going into decisions going forward. That's why we have the Advisory Council, private sector collaboration. Private sector has a big role to play in the way forward. So that's why we have them in the advisory council to assist in developing these policies. Like I said, even the policy around confidentiality of data and privacy, in the conversation we had in Silicon Valley, we extended the invite to even the Facebook, because we need to deal, how do we build the right policy to ensure challenges around fake news and all these kind of anonymity issues are managed better. I think, again, what is very critical is, while we attract that private sector investment in, we also bring in the capacity and the skills and the knowledge, and they understand their pains better, and they can share it with us in the advisory council. I feel the approach that this administration is taking, having been someone from the private sector myself, I think it's highly welcome.
All right, Oshubalo, thank you very much. I'm tempted to stay with you guys in Lagos, but let me bring in Chike and then return back to Lagos in terms of investment. Now, when you have a road show like this, no doubt about that, Segun Awolowo Jr. Was here with us in the studios, and he talked about the enthusiasm. The NIPC CEO was also here, and they talked about the enthusiasm that the investors had expressed. But can I label it as seed investment? How do you attract that initial investment that then serves, as the opportunity for a critical mass? What are the things that we need to do in-house to say, all right, we've met with investors out there, they are keen on coming. What do we need to do in-house to bring them in? And then once they come, it begins to spread.
Great, incredible question, and I'm glad you brought that up, because I was actually going to ask if I can speak to that. I'm a filmmaker. And as a matter of fact, like I was telling you off camera, I'm actually here in the country to premiere my film that opens this Friday, Rose for Freddy. And I was here last year for 6 weeks shooting. And yes, there are challenges that we encountered. However, we knocked down these challenges. For me, my philosophy is every challenge becomes an opportunity. Awesome. And every step of the way, while I encountered challenges, I kept saying to myself, this is an opportunity for investment. And so tying it back to your question, there are things that we have to put in place, of course. Nigeria, creativity, like I keep saying, is not the issue. Talent is not the issue, but the enabling environment. For a film to happen, for all these partners to be able to come down, for Paramount, for instance, to say, hey, listen, I'm coming down, or Sony, Warner Brothers, or even the other mid-sized independent companies that want to come to Nigeria, for them to be able to come down and succeed. One thing is for them to come, but the question is, you never get a second chance to make a first impression. If they come and they can't work, then they walk away. And when they do, they're not talking to you for 20 more years. And so it's also important that we do a little bit of homework, the issues of security. Of course, we know we have challenges of electricity and those kinds of things. But I think some of this can easily be mitigated through government-private sector partnerships. And that's what some of us are coming back. I'm happy that I came here and I shot my film with an all-Nigerian cast, all-Nigerian crew, to prove to my colleagues in California that it can be done. And we shot the film with the best specs for Netflix, period. And so we have that. And so as we begin to showcase the success stories, we must tell our stories. People come here and maybe somebody loses their wallet, that becomes front page news. But somebody loses a wallet and it gets found, it doesn't make the news. So we need to package our own success stories. Every place on the planet has problems. Nigeria is not an exception. Yes, ours may seem to be more magnified than others, but while we work on those, right here, right now, we need to start packaging the country in a way that we tell our success stories and also manage the expectations. And so that we take it one step at a time. Let's not go for the $100 million film right now. Let's talk to some of the medium and small size independent companies that can come here and do a $10 million film, $5 million film, $2 million film, work with our industry experts here and practitioners, gain the momentum, get those successes behind us, learn, find the mistakes and fix them. And then we keep graduating forward, because the vice president's visit, like I said, was incredible, has now opened a lot of opportunities for Nigeria. And people are really, those that were on the sidelines before, the big players, are really looking for ways to engage. And so let's handhold them, get them in here, and slowly begin to roll out what we have. And I think it's going to happen. There are a lot of people that are very interested in investing in Nigeria right now, and as we speak, and working with Nollywood practitioners, and people are even mentioning Nollywood, at very senior levels, and it's a good thing to see that. But I think we need to take it easy. We need to learn to walk before we fly, so we don't crash.
Chike, let's still on Nollywood now.
Yes.
That's part of the creative industry, huge as it is, Joy, and you know this very well. You can decompose the film industry. There are different aspects to it.
Right.
I'm sure there are areas where we have our strengths, and there are areas where we have our weaknesses, whether in terms of hard infrastructure or soft infrastructure. And even the way we organize ourselves.
Right.
Yes. What, in your opinion, is required for us to do, say in the creative industry now, film in particular, for us to be able to be a magnet for these potential investors?
Yes, I would like to use the analogy of what Lanre was talking about in terms of the IT sector. When you're having a target for developers across the country, there's no reason why we cannot do that. Make sure that, for instance, that pretty much all the states in this country, we have very well set up production services companies. So it doesn't have to be concentrated in one space. And so that you can go to a place like Calabar or Oka or Enugu or Zaria or wherever, and there is a production services company where you can walk in and have standards that meet international best practices. If we make that our goal and we empower, the thing is that we are so creative in Nollywood. The independent practitioners are setting up film academies in this country themselves. They're running it out of their pockets. Let's support those. Let's spread it around. I hear there's one in Benin now. There's one coming up in Enugu, in Lagos, all over the places. But we need to, just like Larry was saying about the developing, breeding a whole new generation of developers across the country and having a massive target that can support not just the Nigerian economy, but global demand. We can actually make Nigeria the hub for African creative industry as well as the global space, because people will come with digital technology. They will find your service. You can edit a Hollywood film if you have the facility in Owerri. They will give it to you and you do it digitally. So there are these things that I think we need to, and they're achievable. If we give it a 2, 3 year, 5 year target, we can make that happen. But let's start with 1 and go to 2 and go to 5.
Okay, you are a worthy ambassador. Now, let's hear from you. I know there's some people who still go to the academy in New York, the Film Academy in New York and California.
Yes.
How can you get people from such institutes to come partner with some of these academies that are coming up, so we stop the movement of producers and actors? Some people have this impression that unless you go to New York, unless you go to California, people won't recognize what you have. And yet we have indigenous producers and actors who, without training, are already doing something good with the rudiments they have already. Right. How can we attract these people into the country?
In my opinion, the fundamental question is we don't even need to bother about attracting them. We need to show them that we already have the excellence here. They will come asking us. There is no reason why they cannot come to Nigeria and ask us to bring a trainer to New York. I teach at a university in California. I can tell you, and I'm not trying to down the Americans, but I can tell you that Nigerians are one of the smartest people on the face of the planet. For God's sake, if you look at the statistics in the United States, Nigerians hold the highest number of PhDs across all demographics, including Caucasians, Asians, Black, everybody. So I don't think we need to worry about what they're doing at New York Film Academy. Yes, if we have people that go there to train, great. But we can build, we have the brain power, the capacity, we have the intellectual know-how, the creativity here to build our own Nigerian Film Academy that people will be coming from Brazil and Russia to study. Why not? Is it because they're white that we think it's important? No, we are Nigerians and we have the talent, we have the creative enterprise. So let's support the Benin Film Academy or the Tunde Kalani's Academy. These are geniuses.
And Tunde is doing very well.
Of course.
All right, Chike, thanks a lot. Let's go back to Lagos and Aboyeji, that's Inyoluwa. We'd like you also to speak from the ICT perspective on what is required for us, to create, as they say, the enablers in order to magnetize the seed investment and thereafter see them grow into giant oaks.
Absolutely. I think the way I think about it in terms of the seed investment, it's probably a three-step process. The first is really building great companies. There are a few companies that are showing incredible growth and have been invested in by investors all over the world. I've had the pleasure of leading two of them with Flutterwave and Della. And there are many others, from Paystack to Piggybank to Cowrywise to Kobo 360 to Cars 45. There are many of them. And the reason why I say that's important is ultimately active investment, technology investment ecosystems are actually kickstarted by successful founders. So I personally, every now and then, will invest in small companies. I've made probably many seed investments, not necessarily because I wanted to make money, but because I wanted to encourage other entrepreneurs who were going this path and share my expertise with them. So that's the first thing. The second thing is making it a lot easier for individuals, private individuals, to invest in startups. We still have a lot of work to do with the SEC, with the tax authorities, so that investors, just like anywhere else in the world, can write off loss-making investments. Because the nature of seed investing is that many of these companies do not survive. So if it's a lot less risky for high net worth individuals or just comfortable emerging entrepreneurs and individuals who are just privately interested in this space to invest in the space from a regulatory point of view as well as from a tax advantage point of view, I think you'd see a lot more seed investment. And I think the last thing really is actively building capacity in our universities. Ultimately, the best companies are created by talent, and talent tends to attract investment not just from the country or from people in the country, but from all over the world. And there's a critical battle to fight there, because the reality today is that our university curriculum, even though some reforms have been made, is still not attuned to the realities of today's technology environment. And there's a lot of work that the Education Ministry has to do to reform the curriculum, to make it easier for universities to basically create entrepreneurs right out of school, especially in the technology space, where all that's required is some knowledge of code and a bit of business acumen. And it's very, the presidency has been very supportive, creating the Student Innovation Challenge, encouraging students to look around them and identify problems that they can solve. And I think that that's one step. Obviously, another step would definitely be to work with the private sector and review the curriculum. And that's something that we're going to be working on very actively with the presidency, with the Technology and Creativity Advisory Council, introducing new disciplines to the university curriculum that will make it easier for us to have more talented entrepreneurs emerge directly out of school.
Iyoluwa, thank you very much. Let's bring in again Olarewanju Oshibona into this. Again, I want to refer to the first installment of our discussion on this when we had the CEO of NITA, that's Technology Development Agency, and on that occasion we asked him, because he was part of the Vice President's delegation on this trip, we're asking him about, let's take a look at the value chain of ICT, software, hardware, and then of course piracy issues and then regulation. So, but I want you to focus again on the software aspect without bothering about the hardware. What is there from this trip that is probably now going to help catalyze the critical mass that is required? We know that there are a number of hubs around some of the cities in the country, but what do we need to do to help catalyze that critical mass? And then you have a number of bubbles.
Thank you very much. I think let me just quickly state this. I think we have overbeaten ourselves as a people, as a country, as as Nigerians. We've actually beaten ourselves down too much. It's too much negativity. But let me just share some success stories. If you think about it, in the US, Nigerians, and especially Nigerians have gone abroad, take the most allocation in terms of minority allocations for technology jobs in Silicon Valley even, and across the US, and also in Europe. So, when they have this positive affirmation where you want more of black African Americans or even other black African countries, Nigerians actually occupy the most in that role. If you look at some of the conversation that His Excellency had with Stanford University, what you find is a lot of the programs are attended by Nigerians. So we have the skills, we have the people, we have the know-how. Somehow, we just haven't, for whatever reason, I think we've overbeaten ourselves. That mindset has to change. There must be a complete mindset shift, whereby we now start having ambassadors. I mean, what I would love to see is ambassadors, success stories, the likes of Inyi, come up, and Nigerians can actually see the fact that this is real, this is really happening. If you think about it, you see success in terms of the music space. No one really has to push anyone to try and be a musician. The success story is there. You look at it, trying to be a footballer. The success story is there. No one chases anyone to go be a footballer. What we must showcase is the success story. I'll share a good story with you also. In 2015, when we came in, we had a program to attract innovation as early as that time, called the Aso Villa Demo Day. There was a particular young startup that wasn't even amongst, it wasn't the top 3, but it was amongst the top 30. He has gone up until now to attract $2 million. He participated in the program in the US. He's attracted $2 million for his program. This is success story that we're tracking. So if we can make success stories a reality, the other part will come in. Because Nigerians are brilliant. Nigerians are extremely brilliant. And the mindset must change. There must be more good stories. There must be opportunities. Because the business is out there. If you look at why China is such a country to go to today, it's not because China is cheap. It's because China has skilled workforce. More than the US, skilled workforce. India has skilled workforce. That's what we must introduce in our country. We must introduce the capacity in terms of technical skills. But again, mentoring. Part of again what what we determine to achieve as part of the industrial, as rather the technology and creative sector advisory council is the mentoring of skills, the soft skills. Running the business, or having the patience, having the longevity mindset, having the other areas where the collaborations where you can learn from each other, where you can share ideas, where you can leverage. So as you build your own solution, it leverages someone else's solution, and you build a conglomerate. That's really the approach. I don't think it's so much the technical know-how. Nigerians are just absolutely brilliant, absolutely brilliant. We just need to harness that, and as we do this, then the business will come. Because today I'm speaking to some startups and they're already challenged because they're saying to me, oh, the prices of the developers have gone up. So I say it's a good problem. I love that problem because what it means is there's a demand. So don't worry, what we need to do is churn out more of these developers and then everyone will find its level. But we cannot then start and say, oh, let's not encourage startups to go abroad. No, if you want to go abroad. You become a diaspora and you send money back home. However, we will build enough of it. Let's become a hub. I want to see a hub where we outsource knowledge. That's what I want to see. So I think it's an exciting time.
Oh, well, Shibano, thanks a lot. Very quickly, we are pressed for time now. We want to just read out some of the tweets that have come in. I just take a couple of them. Joy, this is from Mike Ayankwo again. It says the gains of the Vice President's visit to the U.S. cannot be overemphasized. We have many brilliant people in this country. Nigerian students are making waves both within and outside the country. Those talents should be recognized for developmental efforts in the country in all areas of national life.
And this one is from Dele Jack Solomon Merge. He tweets, as a nation, we must improve on ease of doing business in Nigeria. This is because issues such as intellectual property theft and lack of investment guarantee are some of the reasons why many investors have avoided Nigeria in the past. And the federal government should continue to address these concerns and try to allay the fears of willing and potential investors by assuring them of Nigeria's openness for business for the visit of the Vice President Yemi Osinbajo to Silicon Valley to translate into economic progress in Nigeria.
All right, that's the most that we can take in terms of viewer reactions, as well as, of course, a discussion segment with our guests. We'd like to appreciate all three of them, two of them in Lagos, Iyoluwa Aboyeji, who is CEO and co-founder of Flutterwave Incorporated, ICT Orientation. We'd like to thank you. We also would like to appreciate Olariwanji Oshibona, who is Senior Special Assistant to the President on ICT. Gentlemen, thanks a lot. You joined us from Lagos Network Center. And right here with us in the Abuja studios, big thanks to Chike Nwafia, who is President, Resource Media Group and Founding Director, Silicon Valley African Film Festival in California. Chike, thanks a lot for your insights.
Thank you, it's a pleasure.
All right, so that does it for our two topics for discussion this morning. Let's go back now to sports with Tanzania's newest coach, that's Nigeria's Emmanuel Amunike, appointing also a new goalkeepers trainer. And in tennis, Ostapenko exits early at Rogers Cup.
And on that note, we conclude Good Morning Nigeria for today. Thank you for your time. I am Joy Oseago.
And I'm Kingsley Osadolo. I join Joy in appreciating your tuning in today. We are back tomorrow, same time, 7 o'clock in the morning. Do enjoy the rest of your day.